Chapter 18, An Introduction to Ecology and the Biosphere. So we'll start with an overview. So what is ecology? Well, ology, that means the study of something. So this is the scientific study of the interactions between organisms and their environments. So any living organism lives someplace, and that someplace is in an environment. It's often referred to as the organism's habitat, meaning where it lives in nature, often what it does. So the scientific study of the interactions of organisms and their environments. So technological innovations of humans and science have enabled people to colonize just about every environment on Earth. And there's a serious negative downside to that. Earth's resources affect our survival on the planet and have been profoundly altered by our activities. So a lot of human activities are very damaging to the environment, and in so very damaging to ourselves. So environmental problems can be understood by the science of ecology and require decisions based on values and ethics that hopefully will go towards helping solve some of our serious problems. So on a personal level, each of us makes daily choices that affect our ecological impact. We live in a society where we are consumers, not because we ingest food, but consumers in the sense of we shop and we buy things, and our daily choices do actually have an impact. So next time you're in the grocery store or you're shopping for something, and I just happen to pick a grocery store here, the items that you buy, are they in plastic or in glass or in tin or aluminum? Aluminum and glass are recyclable. However, plastics, even though they're recyclable, they tend to be the worst choice to make in terms of packaging, because just the process of making plastic is harmful to the environment. And then especially if we don't recycle, that plastic winds up in the garbage stream, and that also becomes harmful to the environment. So on a personal level, everything you decide to do, whether it's buy a new water bottle every day or use a recyclable water bottle, does have an impact. It really does. So let's jump into more of a natural setting and description. This chapter does go into some of the problems caused by humans on ecological level. We're going to focus more on wildlife for this chapter. So interconnections within systems. So let's look at a hierarchy of these interactions. So many factors affect how an organism interacts with the environment. So there are biotic factors. These are all of the organisms in an area and the living component of an environment. So bio meaning life. So this jackal, it is a living thing. So it's one of the biotic factors in its own environment, but it relies upon other living things, including the plants that were eaten by the herbivore, the plant eater, that the jackal happens to be eating itself. And within the jackal's body, there are microbes that help it in terms of digestion. So biotic factors are like the living components of the world. And that's the opposite of the abiotic factors. So abiotic means anti-life or against life. So the abiotic factors in an environment are the non-living components, whether they're physical or chemical. So for example, temperature. It's important for this animal if it gets too hot or too cold. The lighting. It might be a more effective hunter in the bright sunlight or a twilight area, or maybe at night. Water is essential. Minerals that are found in food are important, and of course the air that it breathes and that we breathe. These are all non-living things, components in the environment, the abiotic factors that are essential for life. So we can break up the environment into biotic and abiotic factors that basically determine what organisms can live in particular places and which organisms cannot. So I mentioned where an organism lives. So the habitat is a specific environment in which it lives, and it includes biotic and abiotic factors. So this marine turtle lives in the ocean. It has a large habitat because many of them migrate great distances. So the biotic factors that help it live are the foods that it eats, other organisms that can potentially be hazardous to it, and then the abiotic factors in this case, clearly the water temperature, water pH, minerals that are dissolved in the water. Of course, possibly contaminants or pollutants become important to this animal. So let's look at the actual hierarchy, the levels of interaction. So ecology can basically be divided into 4 increasingly comprehensive or larger and larger levels. The first level is the organismal level. So the organismal ecology is concerned with the living requirements of particular individuals, like a salamander here. The next level, larger or more comprehensive, is the population ecology. So this is dealing with the population, the group of the same species living in a particular place. Population ecology. Above that and more encompassing is community ecology. So the community is all of the living organisms, different species in a particular region, particular place. So the interactions between them. And then above that, most comprehensive or encompassing is the ecosystem ecology level. So this is all of the different species, all of those populations, and the abiotic factors that determine where they live, how abundant they are, how they live, and maybe even how they may die. So the ecosystem ecology is looking at an entire system, the biotic and abiotic components, and how they interact with each other. So an organism is an individual living thing, and then organismal ecology is considering things like the adaptations that have allowed organisms to meet particular challenges of particular environments. So salamander, it has soft skin, moist skin. It is ectothermic, meaning cold-blooded. So these are properties of this organism that help determine where it can live in its environment. Since it has moist, wet skin, for example, it can't live in a really dry place because it'll lose too much water. It will desiccate and potentially die. So the distribution of organisms is limited by those abiotic factors or conditions that they can tolerate. So for example, again, amphibians can't live in really cold climates. They have no real way of regulating their body temperature the way we do. They gain body warmth and maintain their body temperature by absorbing heat from the surroundings. So amphibians and reptiles and other what are called cold-blooded or ectothermic organisms have to live in places where they can regulate their body temperature based on the environmental temperature. So it limits their habitats. Okay, moving up to population ecology. This is involving a population, group of individuals of the same species living in a particular area. So population ecology examines factors that affect population density, population growth, those sorts of things. If the penguins become too dense in numbers, they start to have problems because maybe the food supply gets overeaten. Food becomes limiting. The space they need to mate and reproduce and raise their youngs becomes crowded. Disease starts to go up. So density is important. And then growth in terms of population growth. So population ecology is looking at the factors that determine if their population size stays steady, if it goes up, if it goes down, and if it goes up and it goes down, does it fluctuate, say, on a seasonal level? Many organisms have seasonal fluctuations in their growth patterns of those populations. Okay, moving up to community ecology, examining all the communities, yellow flowers, blue flowers, white flowers, grasses, rodents, etc., things that eat the rodents like hawks and such, all the organisms that inhabit a particular area or region. And it focuses on the interactions between the different species and how those interactions affect the community structure, meaning which species are found, which ones are omitted or pushed out, what's the population density of the different species, right? And those all are based on the different interactions between the different species. And in terms of their organization, are they randomly spread about in the area? Are they clustered in particular regions? Are they really rare, few of them? Are they really abundant, a lot of them, like the yellow flowers here? And all of those things are based on the interaction of the different species in a particular area. So community ecology gets pretty involved. Then if we throw in the abiotic the abiotic component of the environment, we get into ecosystem ecology. So this examines the ecosystems, all the abiotic factors in addition to the community of species in particular areas and how they all interact with each other. And it gets very complicated. So this level focuses on energy flow and cycling of chemical nutrients among various abiotic and biotic factors. The carnivores are eating meat, and many of those are herbivores, plant eaters. The plant eaters are eating plants. The plants grow because they get sunlight energy. They get nutrients and water from the ground, the soil. So the plants produce biological molecules and have nutrients in them that gets transferred and flows into the living animals that eat them. And then the predators eat the animals. Energy is flowing between them. Eventually everything dies, decomposes, energy is released back into the environment. In the decomposition process, nutrients get released back into the environment so that new living organisms or living organisms like plants or fungi can absorb them and grow, and things cycle in terms of chemicals. But remember, energy flows through a system. We've talked about that in a previous chapter. So let's get up to the biggest level, the biosphere. So this is a global ecosystem. So this is involving trying to examine how all of the ecosystems on the planet, terrestrial and aquatic, how they interact with each other to determine which organisms can live on planet Earth and how they interact with each other. So it's a sum of all the planet's ecosystems, all of our life on Earth and where it happens to live. The atmosphere is important in the biosphere, and this is the layer of atmospheric gases that surrounds the planet. It's up to several kilometers thick, and it's critically important because it has our respiratory gases there, and it also helps buffer the planet temperature-wise, and in particular helps protect us from excess harmful solar radiation. It includes the land, terrestrial habitats, lakes, streams, aquatic habitats, oceans, and even caves, wherever life can be found. So the patterns in the distribution of life on Earth is really dictated by the differences in the abiotic factors of the environment. So in this particular snapshot of this particular region, the trees and plants and animals that are found here are able to live here because they're able to handle the abiotic components or factors of the environment. If it suddenly gets too cold, some of these plants might perish and die off, and then the animals that are dependent on them may also die off or have to move away. Conversely, if it gets too hot, that changes what organisms might be found here. So at a ecosystem level or a biosphere level, there's always an interaction between the organisms and their abiotic factors.